Hello, rebellious visionaries, and welcome to the Root Work podcast, where we're digging deeper to get to the root of financial success and failure. You're about to listen to conversations between two real sisters who are still growing and sharing their journey with you. Join us as we normalize difficult conversations around money and discover how we can use the power of talking about it to grow from and support each other so we can have the confidence to choose the life we envision.
Hello.
Hello.
I spelled my name wrong, but it's me.
Kim Williams.
Right. I got William. That speaks volumes today. Wow. Yo, you got William, didn't you? Sure did.
I sure did get Williams.
Lord.
That's a verb.
Mm-hmm. Need a support group for that one. Anyway.
Being set back. Let's not speak that over the name Williams.
Right. Right.
Especially since our grandmother's maiden name was Williams.
Yeah. Something will come out of it.
So, new week, new challenges. As we come into this week, actually, let me find my notes real quick before I really get into it, because I feel like I had something I specifically wanted to say. But the thing about this is, as every day goes by, I experience something new and I'm like, oh, we should talk about that. Oh my God, we should talk about it. We're going to have content for the rest of our life. It ain't gonna be hard to come up with content because life keep happening to us and I'll be like, we need to talk about that.
If it's happening to us, it's happening to someone else. That's one thing I'm learning, that you're not alone. I find that a comforting people. I never knew how comforting was when you're in the world by yourself. You think you're by yourself, but to know, hey, you're not in that situation, in that battle, and that thought process, and it's been comforting. Just like when I started going to support groups, like I thought that was weird, but I was going to support groups. I realized how comforting it was, oddly comforting to be around people I didn't know and connect with them solely off of one thing we were dealing with. And the backstory was different. The demographics were definitely different, but that one common pain point brought together like a community of healing. That was just different for me.
And that's the beauty of it, is that you got to see that, a lot of times people think like, if I was in a different position in life, I wouldn't have this problem. If I had more money, if I had a different job, and in your situation, you got to see people who were lawyers, who were doctors, who were in all different walks of life, who were really doing well in life, and in theory, right, shouldn't have anything to be depressed about to lead you to this this behavior, this lifestyle, and yet they're here. So it goes to show you that you shouldn't have any shame. Anybody can find themselves in this situation if they're not doing the work, if they don't have a support system, if they have things in their environment that,
or if they're just
triggering.
If they're just living.
Yes.
That's another thing. There's
just alive.
I had to realize that even today, like, life will come and happen, and there's not a whole lot of things you could avoid, certain things that happen. But don't count out, because life happened to you, and doesn't mean it's not happening to other people. Like, so
this makes me think of like the scripture, no weapon formed against you will prosper. It's like God never promised there wouldn't be weapons, like there wouldn't be things that you would have. It's just that you had the ability to overcome them. And so it's
definitely how you handle what someone just said that. I think it was Pharrell. He said that in one of the things I was online with, and he just said, everyone says it, like, life is literally what 10% of what happened to you, and 90%, maybe I'm messing percentages up, but the ratio is not of how you deal with it, like how you get up, how you handle that situation. That's what builds you. That's how you find out who you really are. And I today was just an example of that. Like,
This is exactly why I wanted to have the conversation, because it felt like, it's so easy. The habits that you and I had, and I'm sure that lots of women had, were when situations would pop up and we would feel overwhelmed, we would shrink into ourselves, right? We would shut down,
yeah,
because that's how we learn to be able to sustain for so long. And when the life problems weren't that crazy, it worked. It was fine. But when it got to a certain point, it became one of the most self-sabotaging habits. And so when, you sent me the message, like, I just need to lay. And it's not to say that you don't need to rest, because sometimes you do. You just need to rest and let it off.
yeah,
But if it's shutting down, that I couldn't give you permission to do that, because you wouldn't give me permission to do that. If I was in a place where you could see, it would be, even for a moment, to just, even if it was just a crack a joke, like, to
right,
just allow me to just you can do this, to be here, be present. This isn't, you're not dead, it's not killing you. It may be painful, but talking it through is so healing. Just breathing, seriously, just breathing,
right,
taking deep, slow breaths, is oddly calming, where you go from reacting to responding. In an earlier podcast episode that I did with Dr. Patrice Berry, she talked about the difference between reacting and responding, and I never forgot that. And it was that, like, reacting is like an irrational, impulsive, emotional response to something, where
mm-hmm,
there's no thought, there's no, you know what I mean, where it's like, um as opposed to responding, where it's like, okay, if you're stressed out about a bill coming in, and or you're stressed out about your finances, reacting might look like shutting down and just not logging into your
right,
account, or it might look like, I'm gonna just do something reckless or whatever to get the
right,
money, or I'm gonna take that boyfriend back. Because where responding is giving yourself a beat to look, to stand back and look
right.
at the whole situation and say, okay, this is where I am. What are the things that I can do? What can I do?
And what do I
Okay, I
ultimately
can.
want out of this situation? Um,
Exactly. What
yeah.
are the, and looking, literally weighing the pros and cons, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can see your choices, as opposed to just picking the one right in front of you because it's the first thing you thought about. That's reacting. Responding is looking at all the possibilities and choosing the one that makes the most sense for you.
Right,
So, and a lot of times, if we are just caught up in our emotions, we end up in that. And that was something that was part of the reason why, even though I knew what to do technically with money, when I would be dealing with trauma, when I was in a abusive relationship, when I was, feeling stressed and overwhelmed at work, I would not make decisions that were wealth building behavior, because I was just reacting. I was just trying to survive the day. I was just trying to catch my breath. I just was trying to just to survive, is what it felt like, in survival mode, as opposed to taking a moment and standing back and giving myself space and time to figure out, okay, what is in your control and what is out of your control? What am I imagining is the outcome of this versus what is actually factually true? Because a lot of times, some of our emotions are built off of, like, if somebody says something that triggers us, we could be thinking about all the other times that when this incident happened and the
mm-hmm,
outcome, and we are taken right back to that point emotionally, because we can see it clear. It's so vivid, so clear.
right.
And then we're reacting from that emotion, as opposed to this newer version. And it takes work. I mean, yeah, it takes work.
Yeah, that is to actually even today, like to actually pull myself together was a challenge within itself. And I could see how in the past self-sabotaging acts, um, I guess like a kid acting out, like just screw it, ain't nothing working right. Do the best in this area, you do the best in that area. And along the way, not realizing that things are actually working out. Things are some things have to happen in order for you to move on a certain thing. And in the
Mhm.
situation with today, I knew what I needed to do before. And this, how I reacted with the transitioning of everything, it was something I needed to do anyway. And it was almost like this actually puts in order some other things. So where I had to take a step back and not, what's, it's a word that people use when you make things bigger than what they are. And I love the way,
Uh, Magnify
but
or
it's like
um,
it's it's so descriptive. I love how when people say it, but it's what people do, especially people who with addictions and things like that, their reaction to certain things, when we don't make things real, like when we don't look at how what is the truth, like our anxiety tells us one thing, but what is really right in front of you, what is really happening. Even with this whole week started with my doctor um pushing back on writing up my paperwork properly for my retirement. And while I'm in the office with her, she's fearful of actually writing what's in my record on, it was almost like she thought I was asking her to approve my retirement. And it just kind of magnified the fact that the support people need, they can't get. And I was just really at this place where I feel like anything all the time while I'm in tears and I'm like telling her the issues I'm dealing with. She's like, well, yeah, well, we don't do long-term approvals. And I understand you have been coming for your treatment. But I can't, and I said, well, I'm not asking you for to do long-term approvals. I just need, the lawyer just asked that you kind of the proper diagnosis or my diagnosis in this form. Meanwhile, I just had a breakdown talking to her because it was a sum of what I dealt with in the medical in my with my job when you're dealing with mental health illnesses. But when I got the letter the next day, when I looked at it, she literally wrote what I needed her to write. But at that moment,
you were feeling with all this worry and this strain and
because she
this
was even pushing back, and I just thought, this is like, if she doesn't help me, everything's gonna fall apart. Oh my god! Like, I'm depending on, like, in my head, I'm just having this breakdown in her office, and then the next day, because I was so distraught, then I get the call that Amon thought he had COVID at school. That happened on Monday. This week
and
has
this and,
been
and this is why they say worry is a waste of your imagination. It
right,
is us imagining a scenario that has not happened. It's not necessarily true, and most of the time the things we worry about never actually happen most of the time. And it's something I used to do all the time with classwork. I would not submit assignments because I'm a perfectionist. I love being excellent. Always had um did well in school. Whenever I was applying myself, I was going to have A's. And if I couldn't get an A, then I'm not doing any of it because I would
right,
overthink it. And then turn an assignment and it was like a hard A. Like, wasn't
right,
even like she took her long to grade it. And I'm like, I spent weeks avoiding it, stressing it, putting it aside, feeling shame because I was ignored. I spent the whole week making myself miserable because I was
right.
overthinking something. And here's the thing, something you said, I want to go back to, is when you start to realize that all of it is on purpose, then
Hmm.
where we shift from being angry at the person who triggered the events
Right.
and start becoming grateful. Oh, I'm so glad. I recently had this conversation with the person I ended my relationship with, and I said, I'm grateful for you. I have no ill will toward you. I hope you live a prosperous life.
Right.
Because had I done anything differently, had you done anything differently, I would not have experienced the pain and the hardship that I went out, but I also wouldn't have learned the lessons that I needed to learn in order to be passionate about the people I was born to serve. God
Right.
needed me to experience that so that I would feel so pulled in to that community that I wouldn't let my reservations about, oh, whether I haven't had a degree or not keep me back. I wouldn't hold my reservation of whether or not I'm a millionaire yet or not keep me back. I
Right.
know, I know in my gut that God created me for this purpose, and he took me on an unusual path to learn these life lessons. It's not that I don't know what I know. I just learned them in a different way than other people did. And so, had I not gone through that lesson, I wouldn't have that level of attachment. I wouldn't be so passionate about developing a tiny home community for people in the gap, because I would not have been homeless and lived in a transition shelter myself. I had to go through that. And if my ex had done anything differently, I wouldn't have lived in that shelter. I wouldn't be serving the community I'm serving. So for you, it could just be going through these frustrations with your EEO, with your doctor, with the different facilities you were in, or illuminating some of the needs and
Yes.
that some of the ways the doctors feel like their hands are tied when they want to write the letters and they're afraid
Right.
because of, red tape, where some of the ways where the employers, what I mean, they're illuminating exactly what you're supposed to be doing with your purpose. And I fully believe that when you fall in love with your story, that's the secret to your wealth. I think I talked about this the other
Yes.
on my vlog. Your
Mm-hmm.
your wealth is hidden in your story. It is
Yes.
hidden in your story. Whatever you're supposed to be doing, it is connected to the path of your life. And so now, even though in the moment, it's not like I don't feel sadness when things make me sad or grief or worry. I am just more like, okay, I'm experiencing this. So why? Now it become I'm ridiculously curious. Why am I going through this? Why am I having this setback? Why am I feeling sad? What do I need to understand about myself? What do I need to develop in myself to strengthen this? Because I clearly thought I had gotten over this, but I see myself triggered.
So
Right?
that's you tapping into your creative power to take the situation and like not only asking why, but how am I going to navigate this and create this situation? Because I do believe that we have choices that we set and we decide. Today I had to pick a path each time a thing presented itself. I literally to decide, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? And at some point, I just had to sit down and be quiet and let the tears fall. That's another thing. So
Mm,
the ability to know that you have the power to change, you don't have to let it fall apart when you realize that wait a minute, this is happening for me. It's not just happening to me. How am I? He said he works, everything works together for the good. But you have to understand that. You have to tell yourself this is going to work together for my good. I'm going to
mm,
get what I'm supposed to get out of this situation.
mm.
Or you can take the crap and you can let it just sit and manifest the crap. Like we have, I believe that God is showing me when he said he made us in his image, everything we want, we can create with what we have in our hands. It's a bad situation, it's going to become a story that heals others. If it's a story of addiction, it's going to be a story that I can overcome anything. I can get through my troubles without any type of devices or, you know, whatever that thing. I don't need to run to a man to make me feel whole. It's just a matter of how you take those things in your life and you allow it to be shown to you when you ask the questions, why is this happening? That is such a power question because we don't ask that. Like even today, if I didn't stop and reach out and be like, this is what I'm dealing with, I'm about to fall apart, and have the voices to make me look at the situation from a different point of view, because at that time I couldn't. Most of the times we get through stuff on our own and nobody even know what hell of a week you had. But today I needed to call life support. Today was the day I heard you, and I told this to Robin, I heard you and Robin say to me from years ago when I was going through my hardest season, don't ever go through that and not tell anyone what you're dealing with, because at the end of the day we're going to suffer with you. Like it was like the therapy of knowing that it's okay to say I'm drowning, help me now, and not feel like you're burdening people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like not feeling like you're bringing them down too. Like I remember just being in a position where I could have died and nobody would have known because I was dead mentally anyway. I was dead in every other area, but I had to actually make a decision to call out for help and then go get the help. And when I was in therapy and I was getting the help I needed, that was the biggest thing I was taught was to ask for help. And today I had to, y'all help me see what was in front of me and what choices I had. As crazy as it may look, But at that moment, it was really crazy to me. And sometimes you need another set of eyes, another voice, and you got to be open for that help so you can then say, okay, this is going to turn around. I'm going to make this going to work out good. And it's okay. We're going to get through this. I'm a journalist. I'm going to get on this call and talk about it. We're going to help others. Like, because I was like, yo, I could just do one thing right now and just throw the whole operation. Oh,
Everything you work so hard for, throw it all. And that's what you end up seeing so many people do. Some of the things
right,
that I found myself in was I had built so much wealth, so much stability for myself, and undid it in a moment because of my emotions, because I didn't know to reach out. I didn't
right,
I felt like it was my responsibility to be the stable one all the time.
right,
And so I would be burdening somebody if I told them what I was struggling with, if I that I didn't know how to get out of this relationship without causing damage to my child emotionally, and still be able to show up and be the leader at work and be the high performer that everyone is used to. I didn't know how. I didn't have that skill. I knew how to manage money, but I didn't have that skill. I didn't have
right.
that information growing up.
The
I didn't
coping
have,
skills.
and this gets into a conversation we need to get to another day about how why I love all the values that I got in church, how sometimes hearing about just pray about it created a habit of not actually seeking tangible help in addition
Right.
to prayer. But that's a conversation we got to have, because that's a whole conversation
Yes,
right there.
that's
um
the conversation. It's like
um
I'm in the season of undoing and relearning and embracing what I was given, but then unlearning a whole lot of other things. And
yeah.
that's another conversation.
Whew, yes, I absolutely love these chats, and I really hope that our audience love these chats, and that they feel like, oh my God, these are the conversations I've been wanting to have. If you don't feel like you have a sister, I'm so happy that I get to share my sister with you.
Yeah, I'm glad.
and
Yes, we have a lot of sisters, but it's good to know you really have a sister
yeah,
that can, the backstory. Know the
yeah.
backstory. And the thing about being sisters, you don't always have to know the backstory to know where someone's coming from and to create an environment that you can just tap into something. Because I'm speaking on a day that I needed this talk.
Right. And that's the thing about community, is you were saying it before, is like, you may not have a sister, a real sister like mine. You
Hmm.
may not have a sisterhood like mine. If you guys know me personally, you know about Hot Sauce Crew. That's my sisterhood of besties that I grew
Right.
up with. And so I am fortunate to have real sisters, blood sisters, who I'm ridiculously close to, and best friends who are like sisters to me. But I
Right.
feel like what we also need to have is community in the areas that we need to
Mhm.
work on. And we need to develop sisterhoods, communities around those. This is why I started the YR Financial Visionary Lounges. I wanted a safe space for people to be able to be honest about their journey as they're improving in their finances. And one of the hardest parts of this journey is this part that we're
Right.
doing, the root work, the part where you
Right.
acknowledge the fact that I'm still growing. And I'm not talking about just growing your bank balance. I'm talking about as a human being. You're always
Mhm.
growing, you're always learning. This work right here, it never stops. And so you
Right.
need those communities. And so even if it's beyond the financial community, if you're trying to improve with your self-care, find a group of self-care women who are doing self-care. If you're trying to improve with your health, find a group of women who are working out. Find a community who has your heart, who has your passion, who energetically seems to match you, and connect
Right.
with them so you have something in common, and you can talk about your highs and lows. If you're in the middle of divorce, find a group of women who are healing, not a bunch of bitter
Right.
divorcees, a bunch of
Yes.
women who are working on healing
Right.
um,
Right.
after that relationship, so that you can also heal as well. You have to think about what you want. I'm reading this book called Atomic Habits, and he talked about how your environment affects your habits. That you could
Mhm.
be a non-drinker in general, like at home, you don't even have alcohol in your house, but when you go to the bar, you drink because socially you're a social drinker, and there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. But just that awareness that the environment triggers the behavior.
Yes.
If you
Yes, it
don't pay
is.
attention to the environment, the person you marry, the friends you keep, the place you work, your coworkers that you work around, the type of Facebook groups you're in, the type of content that you consume, the type of books you read, the type of music you listen to, if you are not aware of how those environments are serving you or hurting you, you are going to be moved in directions that you didn't ask to go into
Right.
all the time.
Right. That is really important. I'm actually like where I'm just surrounding myself around millionaires, people who are builders, because I can't afford, because I feel like I'm at such a low level in my life right now that I can't afford to get to in any environment that's negative. So
Yes.
everything where I want to go is I'm intentionally surrounding my in that circle. And sometimes that's all you can. So those are the seeds I'm sowing in my life. How I'm sowing seeds in my life right now, it's just surrounding myself with people who, and not only that, if you get into a group of women, for know that they need you too. Know that they need your story too. You're never not enough to share what you've been through. So that was the biggest thing I learned in my therapeutic groups, was that the feedback I would get when I got over myself and shared was confirmation that I was supposed to be in that group, and my story was not too small, and my story helped so many other people. And once I knew that, it required me to show up and get what I needed, and also be available for people who needed me too. So it's a give and take, and don't neglect yourself. Find the women, connect to this podcast, get connected to everything you need to grow your life, because it's so
Oh,
important.
thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me again today. I know you wanted to go to sleep, and
thank you for being a stubborn little sister who won't ever hear me say I can't do something. Oh, you aggravating.
I
Girl,
know
you
you
got
was
that,
like, I
you
know you
got
was
that
like looking
mommy,
at
you
that
got
text message like,
that.
I think you said. I'm like, well, let's just talk about it.
Listen, I got in the shower and I'm just like, oh, and I know I don't want to be like I gave up on something. If that ain't how mommy be doing me, I'll be like, oh, mommy's like, what are you talking about? God.
Yes, thank you for pushing past. Thank you for pushing
Right,
past how you were feeling in that moment to have this conversation, because it enriched me today. And this is important, and I hope that this conversation has inspired somebody else to reach out to someone, whether you need help or if you notice a friend, a family member who seems like they just need a loving touch, to know that it's okay to reach back out to you. I hope this inspires you to send them a message and say, let's talk about it.
right,
Let me be it. Let give them permission to be your ear. So
right.
until next week, just know that I'm still growing.
Okay, love you.
All right, love you.
The world belong to you. The world belong to you. The world belong to you. The world belong to you.